So what is the difference between the Chidori and the Raikiri? Your first instinct may be to say that, oh, they're the same jutsu, it's just two different names. When Kakashi uses it, it's the Raikiri, when Sasuke uses it, it's the Chidori. But if you dig a little bit deeper, you'll see that it's not that simple. And that's because the Chidori and the Raikiri have each a different entry in the Naruto databooks. One for Sasuke, using the Chidori, and one for Kakashi, using the Raikiri. And you may even say that the two different entries are just talking about the same jutsu, just about different characters, but no. The jutsus are different in those entries because the Chidori, when Sasuke uses it, is listed as an A rank jutsu, and the Raikiri, when Kakashi uses it, is listed as an S rank jutsu, a level above the Chidori. So clearly there's at least a little bit of a difference between the two jutsus, and we're gonna try to explain what the difference is today. So first we have to explain how the jutsu actually works, and there's a bit of a retcon, or I guess you could call it an inconsistency with the jutsu, which is kind of a thing in the Naruto universe because Kishimoto was coming up with things as he went, and he changed and tweaked many concepts as Naruto went along. And the Chidori and the explanation as to how it works was one of those things. The first time Kakashi used the Chidori against Zabuza in the Land of Waves arc, and it looks amazing. It was probably my favorite jutsu ever when I saw it for the first time, and it kept on being my favorite jutsu ever. I still think the Chidori is probably my favorite jutsu in the Naruto series, the Chidori / Raikiri. Maybe Amaterasu could be number one, or maybe Chidori. It's either one of those two, but Chidori is still like one of my favorites. But the thing is, we don't really get much of an explanation as to how the Raikiri works in the Land of Waves arc. It just looks really cool, and Zabuza remarks that he can literally see Kakashi's chakra, which, if you don't remember, in the beginning of the Naruto series, when chakra was so dense that you could actually see it, that was a big deal because it wasn't something normal. And at the end of the series, that was pretty damn normal. It's another one of those retcons. Oh my god, I can see chakra! And then in Naruto Shippuden, especially later in the work, seeing chakras like any Tuesday. But we don't really get an explanation for the Raikiri there, and we don't get an explanation in the second time Kakashi uses it either, which is when Kakashi uses the Raikiri to try and intimidate Orochimaru when he is provoking Kakashi that he's gonna take Sasuke's body and all that. And Kakashi doesn't really use the Raikiri against Orochimaru, he just flashes it trying to intimidate him, but then he just kind of stops the Raikiri when Orochimaru goes away. But then, thankfully, we finally get an explanation when Sasuke uses it for the first time against Gaara. And it is a very cool explanation, given by none other than Might Guy, Kakashi's greatest rival, and I guess if you want someone that's not Kakashi to give an explanation about one of Kakashi's jutsus, that's gonna be Guy, because they've been fighting alongside each other and even against each other as the rivalry goes on for a long time. So Guy states that the Chidori is Kakashi's only original jutsu, crafted by the master copy ninja. He says it's a move used for assassination, and the secret for the jutsu is the speed of the thrust and the immense chakra produced by super activating the flash of the arm. By narrowly focusing massive amounts of chakra from the dominant hand and pulsing fluctuation forms in the thrust, the result is this powerful chakra with a chirping sound, resulting in a unique attack that resembles the crying of 1,000 birds, and that's why it's called Chidori, which translates to 1,000 birds. But that's the thing, in this explanation, it feels like the Chidori is created by the user moving extremely fast. But then again, this isn't exactly the case even before, when Kakashi uses the Raikiri, because he activates the Raikiri and he is not moving at all. Against Orochimaru, for example, he has the Raikiri on his hand and he is not moving. So could it be that this is the difference between the Chidori and the Raikiri, that you have to move really fast to use the Chidori, but Kakashi managed to do the Raikiri without having to move really fast? Well, no, it's not gonna be the case. Because, first of all, in the first time Sasuke used the Chidori there against Gaara, he activated it while he was motionless, hanging on the arena wall there. He wasn't moving when he activated the Chidori. You would expect that the chakra from the lightning and everything would just coalesce when you're moving really fast, but this is not what happens. Also, in the first Naruto versus Sasuke fight in the Valley of the End, when Sasuke grabs Naruto and shoves the Chidori in his chest, Sasuke wasn't moving very fast there. Now, I guess you could say the activation is just the speed of the arm itself, but Sasuke also holds his Chidori in place for a few seconds without moving his arm anyway when he's talking to Naruto and stuff before he thrusts his hand into Naruto's torso. So I guess what Guy is implying here is that the jutsu is made more effective by the user's speed, not that the jutsu is not gonna work if you're not moving very fast. And when you see the first time time Kakashi ever used the Chidori, and by that time it was called Chidori, even though it was Kakashi using it, this seems to be the case, because Kakashi also casts quote-unquote the Chidori while he is stationary, and then he moves really fast to destroy all those Stone Guy shadow clones. I guess they were shadow clones? They looked like shadow clones, they weren't like Earth clones, but whatever. Kakashi destroys the clones, whatever kind of clone that may be, but he has to move really fast to make his Chidori powerful enough, and that's how the power of the Chidori is created. Sure, you can use it without moving really fast, but if you move faster, it's gonna be more effective. And then Minato even tells Kakashi, this ability is too dangerous. You have to move too fast to make it effective, so you get exposed to counterattacks. That was before Kakashi had the Sharingan, so he didn't have enough reaction time to use the Chidori because he had to move way too fast for his own perception. That's why the Chidori Sharingan combination is so good, because the Sharingan counters that, and you can read the opponent's movements even though you are moving extremely fast. So it's very cool thematically that Obito's eye completes Kakashi's jutsu there. But then in Naruto Shippuden we get a very different explanation as to how the Chidori is used and how it works. And that comes when Kakashi is explaining nature transformations and everything to Naruto when he was learning the Rasen Shuriken. He tells Naruto that to use the Chidori he has to change his chakra nature to make it an electric current, changing the nature to lightning style obviously, and then he changes the chakra form so that it will discharge, which makes more sense, because then yeah, you can just use the Chidori while you're not moving, and this happens a lot of times in the series. The characters don't have to be running very fast to use the Chidori anyway. Though I kinda like Guy's interpretation that you have to supercharge your flash moving very fast so your chakra can coalesce on your dominant hand. That's very cool to me, but it only works if the character is moving really fast, so you can't have the character posing as much. Even though there's this very cool scene when Sasuke used the Chidori against Itachi in that hotel hallway, and yeah, Sasuke gets demolished after that, but before he even rushes Itachi, he's using the Chidori with all his anger, and his flesh is peeling off because of the power of the Chidori, and that's why he had to use that sleeve in the Chunin exam, so that his arm wouldn't get hurt by his own jutsu, which is never really addressed as a big limitation of the Chidori, which I think it's kind of a missed opportunity, because compiling with the fact that he could only use the Chidori 2 times in a day, you also have the limitation that it really hurts your arm, and maybe you can't even move your arm very well after you use the Chidori several times. So you have to use that sleeve, and if you take a look carefully, before Sasuke uses the Chidori against Gaara, he kinda opens up that black string that was wrapping around the bandages on his arm, which I guess was containing the chakra around his arm so that his skin wouldn't peel off too much, but we never really get much of an explanation here. It's all very much implied, but Sasuke doesn't really get that anymore in the Naruto versus Sasuke fight, for example. Even in the hospital rooftop, he is not getting his arm peeled off when he used the Chidori, so I guess it was just like a beginner thing for Sasuke using the Chidori. He hadn't mastered the ability completely, so he had that side effect to him, because also Kakashi never really seemed to get that. His arm seemed to be always fine, even in the first time he used the Chidori. Sure, Rin was healing Kakashi after he used the Chidori, but that's because the Stone Ninja managed to counterattack and cut Kakashi. And I know some people have this notion that Kakashi developed the Chidori accidentally by trying to infuse lightning transformation into the Rasengan, and that when it failed, the Rasengan just collapsed into a Chidori, but this is never really shown to be the case. Kakashi literally says that he can copy A-rank jutsus like the Rasengan while he's using the Rasengan, and yeah, he doesn't say, yeah, I copied the Rasengan here, but it's very much implied by what's written in the story. And then he says, well, yeah, and to be honest, if I had managed to infuse lightning on the Rasengan, I wouldn't have to invent the Chidori, implying that he knew the Rasengan beforehand, but I think there was much more to motivate Naruto. We know Minato knew the Rasengan while he was Kakashi's sensei, because of the Minato one-shot where he learns and develops the Rasengan for the first time, and that was when Minato was in his teens and Kakashi was just a little kid. But if Kakashi had learned the Rasengan from Minato, I'm pretty sure he would have gotten information about it. First, because when Jiraiya is teaching Naruto the Rasengan, it's very much implied that only Jiraiya and Minato ever knew the ability. If Minato had taught Kakashi the Rasengan, I'm pretty sure Jiraiya would have mentioned that at least. And do you really think the Naruto anime wouldn't have made a filler episode or something, or at least a filler scene about Minato teaching Kakashi the Rasengan if that was the case? Also, it doesn't even make sense for the Rasengan-infused lightning jutsu to collapse into a Chidori, because the Rasengan is a rotation chakra form, while the Chidori is a discharge chakra form, which which is a completely different thing. So no, the difference between Chidori and Raikiri doesn't have anything to do with how Kakashi developed the jutsu. Then you may say, well, but at first Kakashi had the jutsu and he called it the Chidori. What happened between the Chidori and the Raikiri? Well, Raikiri literally means lightning blade, and the jutsu got that nickname after Kakashi cut a lightning bolt with the Chidori. Hence, the jutsu became the lightning blade. And then you can say, yeah, exactly, it's just a nickname, but then there's a difference in the databook between the Chidori and the Raikiri. Chidori, A rank, Raikiri, S rank. Seems really relevant to me because S rank jutsus are supposed to be way above A rank jutsus. It's literally the difference between a Rasengan and a wind-style Rasen Shuriken, for example. Like, yeah, the Rasengan is powerful, but the wind-style Rasen Shuriken is way more powerful. And Sasuke keeps on calling his jutsu Chidori throughout the entire series. It never turns into the Raikiri. Take a look at the Sasuke versus Deidara fight, for example. Sasuke was using the Chidori several times against Deidara, and Deidara was like, oh, it's the Copy Ninja's Raikiri, and then Sasuke quickly corrects him. My jutsu is called the Chidori. Now, is this done to differentiate between Sasuke and Kakashi's jutsus? Probably, so they feel a little bit more unique, and also for Sasuke himself to assert his own identity here. No, this is not Kakashi's jutsu, it's my jutsu, so much so that Sasuke was doing a lot more stuff with the Chidori than Kakashi ever was. Midway through Naruto Shippuden, he was transforming the Chidori into spears, into needles, wrapping his entire body with the Chidori current, with Chidori stream. He was using the Chidori on his swords, on his shurikens. He created so many Chidori variants, it's kinda crazy, and it's really cool. Now, don't get me wrong, Kakashi also gets his Raikiri variants, but he only gets 2. I mean, I guess you could say 3 if you count Kamui Raikiri, but then you can count Sasuke's Onyx Chidori and other things like that. But just pure lightning style variants, Kakashi has the Lightning Hound, which he uses against Tendo Pain, and also the Lightning Cable, which he uses against the Tail Beast arms while fighting against Obito and the Tail Beast Jinchurikis there. And there are also 2 very cool variants, but Sasuke just gets way more variants, and it seems like he was much more creative with the Chidori than Kakashi was. And yeah, I guess you could say Sasuke didn't want to steal Kakashi's jutsu name because he was the one who cut a lightning bolt with a Chidori, so calling his own jutsu Raikiri wouldn't be appropriate. I think Hebi Sasuke, at least the one who was fighting Deidara, had that sort of honor to him. And after that, when he gets completely unhinged in the 5 Kage Summit, for example, he wouldn't want his jutsu to be named after Kakashi's jutsu because he'd just be disgusted by the thought of having one of those leaf ninjas having the same jutsu as him. Even though, yeah, I mean, Kakashi taught him the jutsu. It's a very immature feeling, but Sasuke was very unhinged and immature at that time of the story, and that made sense. And then you may say, well, but so if Sasuke keeps using the Chidori for the rest of the series and Kakashi keeps on using the Raikiri for the rest of the series, does that mean Kakashi's Raikiri is always more powerful than Sasuke's Chidori? And I would say, definitely not. Sasuke is still using Chidori, the base lightning style Chidori, against Naruto in their final fight in the Valley of the End when Naruto has 6 paths in jutsu. And that jutsu most certainly was not weaker than part 1 Kakashi's Raikiri, even though it may be listed as an S rank jutsu while Sasuke's jutsu is an A rank jutsu. Because that's the thing, the only time we get a base Chidori and a base Raikiri databook entry is in the beginning of the series, in Naruto Part 1, when Sasuke was a Genin and Kakashi was a Jonin. We never get a Chidori update from Naruto Shippuden, when Sasuke is fighting against Jubidara and literally cutting him in half with a Chidori sword. I mean, to be honest, we get databook entries for the Sasuke Chidori variants, and the Chidori Kusanagi blade that he used against Yamato, for example, is listed as a B rank jutsu, and the Chidori spear is listed as an A rank jutsu in the databooks. And yeah, I get it. I don't think the variants themselves should be stronger in terms of their piercing potential than the real base Chidori, because they increase the reach, they increase the surface area of the lightning blade, so they wouldn't be as powerful. That makes sense. The Chidori stream is also listed as an A rank jutsu, and that also makes sense, I guess. It's not as powerful as a base Chidori because it literally hits everybody in Team Yamato there in the Tenchi Bridge arc, and they just get electrocuted, but they don't die or anything, because if he hit everybody with a regular Chidori, it would be much worse. But would you really call the jutsu that split Jubidara into 2 parts an A rank jutsu? I don't know, I mean, obviously you can say that more powerful users can make a lower rank jutsu more powerful, and that's true, but do you really think if Sasuke had a way to make his base Chidori more powerful to reach whatever the Raikiri has that the Chidori doesn't, he wouldn't do it, especially later in Naruto Shippuden. Like, yeah, they're technically the same variety of jutsu, but if the Raikiri can do something that the Chidori cannot, why would Sasuke not learn that? He managed to learn how to extend the Chidori and do all these crazy things. Now, maybe it was a secret Kakashi carried or something like that? But no, it seems far more likely that Kakashi's Raikiri was simply a more powerful, refined, and concentrated version of the Chidori that he learned when he was 13 because he honed the jutsu more properly. And because we just got the Chidori entry from Naruto Part 1 when Sasuke was a Chunin, and he was very much a beginner with a Chidori, he wasn't as powerful with a jutsu as Jonin Kakashi was. So the real difference is that, yes, the Raikiri is more powerful than the Chidori in Part 1 because of who is using them. And obviously the Raikiri gets a different name because it's a nickname given to Kakashi's jutsu specifically because of something he did. But in terms of the jutsu itself, they're probably the same thing. Watch this other video right here, like the video, subscribe, and definitely ring notifications. These 3 things really help me out, and they help you out as well to get the new videos. So please do them, and thank you so much for watching.